Hey, it's Steady Steve. Please like and subscribe. Please click on the Deck Heroes icon. Click on subscribe. It's 100% free. Blood in, blood out. Also, click on notifications just so that you don't miss any amazing content. I'm actually glad I watched this video, which is from CNN, and I actually nearly made reference to why is Trump always needing money if he's a billionaire? And to be honest, I was a little bit more worried that there might be somebody who's leaning on him. So I was actually relieved. I know it's going to sound crazy, given the circumstances, but I was actually relieved there was a legit reason why he needs that money so badly. I mean, the bad side is why he can be bought, He can be bought because he's got, if you look to the upper middle, almost $2 billion in debt. And they're going to go through some of the major debts that he has, and it's like 400 million owed quite recently in legal fees. Still over $1 billion debt. Anyway, let's listen.
Donald Trump's ballooning debt. A new Forbes breakdown of his finances shows Trump owes more than $1.8 billion, a number that's actually exploded just since he left the White House. Now, Forbes senior editor Dan Alexander has been pouring through Trump's finances. So, Dan, a lot of this debt actually comes from legal judgments, $454 million to the state of New York after being found liable for fraud, and he's actually racking up millions more in interest. Walk us through what else is there.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The biggest one is that 454 plus the interest, you get to 482. Then you go to his real estate portfolio. He has 360 against a tower in San Francisco. Many of his buildings have lots of debt on them. But there's also the E. Jean Carroll case, two cases where he lost, and it was ordered to pay $88.5 million. Interest is also accruing on that. So if you put those two legal judgments together, just those things alone, you're at about $575 million. And then you have all of the real estate stuff on top of that.
So let's say even if cases under appeal, right? So
before we go even further, listen, as I studied American politics, back in the day, one of the key things in the Constitution is that the president's salary should be at a level where he's not going to be swayed, and open to persuasion. Now, clearly that salary has not increased in line with, in order to make that happen. But the concept is still the same, that essentially that the president should not be bribeable. You know what I mean? He shouldn't really need for money so that he will be swayed. $2 billion debt. $2 billion debt, and explains a lot. Explains a lot in terms of other kind of very wealthy people, some that we know and some that are hinted at. We know that one of the richest men in the world is back in the campaign. For a long time, he was kind of like touting that kind of Saudi money. I don't know whether he got it or not, but nobody should be that openly corruptible, surely, as a concept.
There's a chance that changes. So if we put that aside, the legal judgments, you were mentioning the real estate business. What really stands out to you most in terms of the debt there?
The one that I think will be potentially most troublesome for Trump is connected to 40 Wall Street. So he has $118 million of debt against that building. And his leasehold interest in the building, we estimate, is only worth $116 million. So it looks like the building is a little bit underwater. And that debt comes due in July of next year. So he's got to figure out a solution here pretty quickly. There are two options. One is he could go find a bank to refinance the loan. But banks are going to be pretty skeptical of refinancing an old, aging office building where the occupancy is going down since COVID. Or he can pay for it himself. He has about $400 million in cash. Also, these legal judgments hanging over his head. Does he really want to tie up, say, $120 million paying off this debt? That's going to be tough for him to do. But in any case, he's going to have to figure out some solution here as he's rounding the corner into 2025.
So he talks a lot about just how much cash he has. Bottom line, does he actually have enough cash to cover these debts?
The big question is whether or not he sells off shares of the Trump Media and Technology Group. This is the parent company to Truth Social. Mm-hmm. Right now, he has about $410 million in cash, but he has $1.8 billion in liabilities. So he's going to have to sell something. And those shares right now they move a ton, but today are worth over $4 billion. That makes up the majority of his fortune right now. If he sells a big chunk of those, especially if it's before the election when people are really excited about it and it's trading really high, he could easily pocket $500 million, $1 billion, and then he wouldn't have to worry about debt concerns at all. If instead he hangs on to them, then he might be in trouble.
What are the chances, though, of that happening?
Of him selling, you never know. I mean, from a business perspective, it would make sense for him to sell them. Okay, this is a guy who needs cash, and he's got a huge asset, and these are liquid shares. He should sell these from strictly a business perspective. Also, he can sell a big portion of his shares and still hang on to a big portion of the company. So it just makes a lot of sense. But it would send the signal that he's not fully behind it, maybe he doesn't fully believe in it, and Donald Trump doesn't like to project weakness. So how do you predict how Donald Trump's ego plays into all of that? That's a very difficult question to answer.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see. And fascinating that some of these zones, including the one you mentioned, 40 Wall Street, coming up next summer. That is a lot to think about. Really appreciate it, Dan. Thank you.
Very, very fascinating. As I say, I had a lot of questions, a lot of concerns. As I said, I didn't want there to be a shadowy figure, and then there still could be. I'm talking about the Trump debt. I didn't want there to be a shadowy figure holding something over Trump. And again, he owes $2 billion. He owes $2 billion. That's on the record. Again, he could owe a lot of other people just for, you know, when your back's against the wall, you know, whose puppet is he going to be? And this goes directly against one of the core principles of the American Constitution, that the American president should not be openly corruptible due to financial matters. That should not factor into the president's decision making. Be interesting to see what happens. Please like, subscribe. That is Steve, and I am out.